A few days ago, Shawn Baker went on Joe Rogan for the second time, and they had some pretty interesting things to say about the carnivore diet. Roll the titles.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. As always, just a quick reminder that I'm now offering the SIBO organic acid stool test and consult via my website. So if you have any health or digestive problems, then consider taking these tests, as they will provide a lot of very detailed information upon which you can start making informed decisions and then start getting your health back on track. And on that bombshell, to the video.
And I went to those guys, to the beef checkoff, and I said, hey, look, we want to spend a little bit of money to do a study on beef versus diabetes, because we know the results are going to be. The people are they're going to go on an all-meat diet or a close to all-meat diet, and their diabetes is going to go away.
So this is the problem with Shawn Baker. He always tries to take the path of least resistance. A person has diabetes, so let's just remove all plants from their diet. You will never see Shawn Baker take a step back and say, I wonder why this person has type 2 diabetes in the first place. Now, invariably, in most situations, it's either they were eating a highly refined processed diet, in which case Shawn should be saying don't do that, or it was that the person had an underlying problem that caused them to develop diabetes in the first place. But you will never hear Shawn Baker say, let's investigate the underlying cause. In fact, Shawn's approach is very similar to mainstream medicine. You have a problem and go to a doctor, and then most will simply prescribe medications without looking at the underlying causes. Shawn Baker takes the approach that you have health problems when eating plants, but let's not investigate these causes, let's just remove them altogether.
It's simple, and it takes all the confusion out. Because whenever you do, you hear all these dietary studies, it's like, oh, but he was eating hamburgers and French fries, and there's all this confounder. Right. So and it's like, you can't really test it. I'm like, the perfect way to test if meat is healthy or not is to just put him on a damn carnivore diet and see what happens.
Again there, he's being overly simplistic in his approach. But what Shawn is not factoring in longer term is the implications of a person following his diet, because he can't know this. And we also need to get away from this notion that being symptom-free means that you are healthy or that you have fixed a problem. Because if most people on the carnivore diet ate beans, pulses and fruits, then their symptoms would likely return. Does this mean that the carnivore diet is healthy or has fixed these people? Absolutely not. If the vast majority of people in the world are able to eat fruits and vegetables without a problem, then it is not the fruits and vegetables that are the issue for the people who transition to the carnivore diet to fix their issues.
It's the only way to test it, because if you do an epidemiology study and you don't account for sugar drink, Coca-Cola, bread, pasta, lasagna.
Yeah, that's what Harvard did recently. They didn't account for sugar intake when they said beef causes diabetes. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! You're not even counting sugar.
That's so crazy.
Right, but they get this published, and this is really bad science, And guys like John Anitis, who's one of the most cited scientists in the world, has basically said, all this epidemiology we're doing, we're just wasting money.
I agree with a lot of what they are saying there. There are a lot of poor industry-funded studies, but you can't make that claim that all epidemiological studies have no value. They are a good starting point for hypothesis generation so that you can move on to meta-analysis and then clinical trials to further the knowledge in that area. He bashes epidemiology, saying that it doesn't take into account a lot of variables, and then says he wants to take a group of people with diabetes and then put them on the carnivore diet, without looking at the variables of why they had diabetes in the first place. That is hardly scientific, is it?
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The beef industry is taking a beating right now. You listen to it, it's like, everybody wants to get rid of beef. The cow farts are boiling the oceans, and it's going to kill you. It's going to give you cancer, which all of it's is largely nonsense. And this is, in my view, this type of study would clearly demonstrate that not only does beef not cause diabetes. In fact, I talked to the CEO of the NCBA 2 years ago. I sat down, I presented in front of the California Cattlemen's Association, and literally the president of the association stood up and said, I went on a carnivore diet and cured my diabetes.
Let's see this guy eat fruit again and tell us that he's cured his diabetes. Again, if the vast majority of people on this planet can eat fruits and vegetables without an issue, then these foods are not the problem. The issue is underlying problems in the person's body, and these need to be investigated rather than just trying to take the path of least resistance and saying, let's just remove all fruits and vegetables from the person's diet. Have you ever heard of the saying, if it's too good to be true, then it probably is? And that's what springs to mind whenever I hear Shawn Baker.
It's like, yeah, it's clear. And the guy said, yeah, I get it. We're going to help you out. We're going to get this going. I heard nothing from these guys. So what I think is going on is the USDA kind of oversees all these checkoffs. And they just kind of say, look, you can't say that because we want to promote, because again, they have all these processed food lobbies, Nabisco and PepsiCo sitting on they're on the board. And they're like, if we promote this one food and people stop eating all this processed food, right? Then what are we going to do? We're going to lose a lot of money. You think about it, not that I'm advocating that everybody go on a carnivore diet, because I don't think it's necessary for one, but if you significantly cut back on all these people consuming all this garbage, what does that do economically to this country?
This is an area that I certainly agree with Shawn on. The goal should always be to try and get people off of junk foods. And if we did that, then people's health and the environment would be in a much better place.
I mean, you think about how much money is spent on garbage food, the drugs that are needed to treat that. You're talking, we spend $4.3 trillion a year on healthcare in this country, and what do we get for it? We got one of the sickest populations in the world. Our life expectancy is going down. Everybody's fat. Everybody's depressed. Everybody's on drugs. It's crazy.
Again, I totally agree with Shawn here, but the answer isn't let's get people off of junk foods and let's also remove fruits and vegetables. The approach should be let's get people off of junk foods, but these people over here are still having health issues eating fruits and vegetables. Okay, but let's investigate why these people are having problems before removing all of these foods from people's diets. This is the most important missing step in Shawn's approach and is the fundamental reason why I can't take him seriously.
It is crazy, and it's crazy that they don't look to diet as being the primary cause of that. Or if they do, they look to these epidemiology studies that don't take into account exactly what you're eating with the meat. Why is it meat that's always demonized?
It's certainly not meat that is always demonized or given a bad press. Most health organizations say that meat can be part of a healthy diet. Processed refined sugars have been demonized and plant-based oils have been demonized, and there are lots of things that are given a bad press. The problem is that people are not acting on the warnings that they have been given, or that we live in a society where people on low incomes are incentivized to buy processed refined foods over healthier staples. Now, I'm massively oversimplifying things here, and there are so many moving parts where public health is concerned, but for Joe Rogan to say that it's always meat that is given a bad rep, well, it's bizarre.
Well, I think for a number of reasons. One, if you go back to dietetics in the beginning, back in 1917, the American Dietetics Association was formed. This was formed literally by Seventh-day Adventists, so that from the very, very beginning, the creation of the nutrition science field, these Seventh-day Adventists who are, religiously vegetarians. You go back to the Kellogg's brothers, John Harvey Kellogg, where he's out there, circumcising females and saying we can't eat meat because it's going to make you have sex and make you have lust and masturbate. This is all this religious stuff. And then it got
people don't know that, but they should know that he developed this cereal, this bland cereal, to discourage masturbation, which is one of the wildest things I have ever heard.
Yeah, that guy was a wacko, man. He was in there
dude.
He was giving himself high pressure enemas every day. It was just fucking 20 gallons a minute enemas because he thought that was something. Yeah, he was a wacko. He was a really nutty guy. You read about some of his
20-gallon enemas?
It was some ridiculous, super high capacity, like a super soaker on steroids thing. Just
So I don't see the relevance of this to public health today. Is he trying to say that some nut job from decades ago is why people are sicker than ever today?
Enema's bad for you because I've always wondered if your internal gut flora is important, and it is. Isn't that getting washed out?
I think to some degree it is. I don't know that anybody's really looked at it from that angle, but I think in some cases, some people's got some problems with constipation, it could be helpful. But
again, that comment there is clearly why he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. Your colon is your fermentation chamber that keeps your digestion optimal and your food and feces traveling through the guts at the right speed. And this is reliant on you having a wide range of bacteria in your colon. And if you eat a poor diet, drink a lot of alcohol, take certain medications, or have gut issues such as dysbiosis, where all of your bacteria is out of whack, then the worst possible thing that you could possibly do is to flush the little remaining good bacteria that you might have.
I don't think it's generally a healthy practice for most, but I know there's people that are like putting weird stuff up their butt, man. It's just kind of, it's like,
I think it probably
like
feels good.
It might
flushed out.
It might.
Well, it also makes you see everything come out of you, I guess. I've never done it, but apparently there's a tube and they look at it. Oh, look, here's your problems.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's this thing these crazy vegans do where they consume like this charcoal and this jelly and stuff, and this kind of gruel mix, and then it kind of like fills up their intestines, and they poop it all out, and they say that's clearing out all my intestines. I can't remember what they call it, but it's like there's these crazy videos where they're just pulling all this like gelatinous black stuff out of their butt, but it's like you just ate all that stuff. That's what's coming out of you.
It's always funny when he gives such extremes as examples of real life. The guy who does colonics or the crazy vegan who does this. The same could be said about crazy carnivores. Many of these carnivores had digestive issues such as gas and bloating, and instead of trying to fix these issues, these crazy carnivores remove all fruits and vegetables from their diets, and then these crazy carnivores try and tell the world that they all did it wrong and that all fruits and vegetables are bad for human consumption.
Oh, look, all the toxins.
Yeah, exactly.
You just ate that, stupid.
You just ate the same toxins.
People are obsessed with that term, like releasing the toxins.
Yeah.
You know, they really think that that's what's happening when you sweat. You get in the sauna, you're releasing the toxins. Like when you're sweating, your body's regulating your heat temperature. Yeah, that's what's going on. You know what clears your toxins? Your fucking liver.
Yeah.
That's what that thing's for.
Yeah, liver, kidneys. Yeah, we got a pretty good detox system for
Yeah.
sure. You don't need all the smoothie, juice fast detoxes. You know, it's like some of the people that are detoxing when their teeth fall out. They're detoxing their teeth.
This is literally one of the dumbest conversations I've ever heard. We have an epidemic of health problems, and all we have heard so far is let's get the world eating meat and a couple of bizarre conversations about colonics.
The other thing is with the smoothie thing is, my God, you're getting so much sugar, and you're getting it in a weird form.
Yeah.
If you're eating fruit smoothies, you're getting sugar in a very unnatural form. Fruit juices, we used to think that fruit juices are really good for you. Most doctors would agree that fruit juices are very high in sugar.
Yeah.
And to get it in that sort of liquid dose where it just goes right into your fucking bloodstream and your liver, that's a lot of sugar, man.
Yes, ideally you want to eat foods in their whole food form, but there are much bigger problems where people's health are concerned compared to having a fruit smoothie or an apple juice.
Well, you think about it because Joe, you're out hunting all the time, and when you're going out and you're like, if I had to get food out here, what would I have available to eat? I can tell you what you wouldn't have all this processed food, but particularly like powder. You know, like we make powdered sugar, we make powdered flour, and we combine them together, but we've changed the nature of the food so much that it's interesting. You know, I saw Darius Mozaffarian, who's a researcher at Tufts, he's the guy to put out the study that says, or was part of the study that said, you know, like Lucky Charms are healthier than eggs. You saw that last year. That's total BS, right?
Hilarious.
But one thing he did point out was that, like, over the last 20 years or so, we haven't really been eating much more calories than we were. Like from the 1960s to about 2000, we ate more calories, and maybe that explains why everybody got fat. But since that time, we really haven't eaten much more, but we've eaten so much more ultra-processed food. And in fact, right now, the U.S. diet is close to 70% ultra-processed, which you think about, that's like crazy, and our kids are getting fat.
Again, totally agree, as would most sensible people, that we need to get people away from these processed refined foods. But then to suggest to people that the way they get optimal health is to remove all fruits and vegetables from their diet, well, is ridiculous.
But one thing that's interesting is, like, you know, because you're talking about the microbiome, right, our gut flora. When you eat like whole food, you know, it goes farther down your digestive tract, and then, you know, our microbiome actually consumes some of it. Up to 22% of our calories can be consumed by our microbiome. But when you're just eating sugar, it goes straight in you. So those calories, your gut microbiome doesn't get any of that. So it's like you're absorbing more calories. So just by changing the quality of the food, you're changing how many calories you absorb.
Another bizarre statement that he's making there. He is acknowledging the importance of food travelling through the microbiome to fuel and feed it, yet he advocates a diet where a very high proportion of the diet is absorbed in the small intestines and will never hit the colon and microbiome. So how is it going to fuel and feed those friendly bacteria?
And that is what some people say is part of what leads to this obesity thing. But we know, like, for instance, well, here's another thing. The USDA came out with a study, like, I don't know, 3 months ago. 91% processed food diet is healthy. You know, this is what they're pushing, trying to get us, because they're trying to position us to say.
What was this study?
This was the USDA put it out. It was probably, I think it was the Nova study. I might have that on there, Jamie, but it's basically because there's starting to be backlash against ultra processed foods. I mean, like South America is starting to ban this stuff, which I think, you know, I'm not for banning food. I mean, I think that gets into, you know, freedom of choice and things like that. So you shouldn't ban. Just like you can still smoke if you want to. You know, it's not the best for you, so you don't want to do that. But at the same point, you know, they're saying like this stuff is, there's a lot of backlash. And like people like myself and probably you and others just saying, look, this ultra processed garbage is literally killing us. It's making us crazy. It's making us depressed. All these people with mental health disorders, a lot of that nutrition is part of that, and we can talk about that. But you know what they're seeing is there's a backlash against that. Yeah, so that's a Nova
Dietary guidelines meet Nova, developing a menu for a healthy dietary pattern using ultra processed foods.
So they're basically saying, hey, how do we make people eat more processed food and make it quote unquote healthy?
Totally agree here that these types of things need calling out. But to go from that to telling people that a meat-only diet is the way to go for people is bizarre.
Conclusions. Healthy dietary patterns can include most of their energy from ultra-processed foods, still receive a high diet quality score, and contain adequate amounts of most macro and micronutrients. Boy.
Right. So remember, USDA, the guys that go there, they leave USDA and they go sit on the board of directors at Nabisco and PepsiCo. And so this is really, I think what this is. It's positioning us as a society to accept that ultra-processed foods are our food. It's really human pet food. I mean, you see what happens to our pets.
Yes.
And everybody's fat, so we're going to say, well, it's still okay. If it's okay if you eat your human dog chow or your human chow, just keep doing that. Don't ask questions. And oh, by the way, here's an Ozempic shot or a semaglutide shot. Will give you to kind of keep you chilled out. So it's really, I mean, it's almost sinister in a way.
Again, I agree with that sentiment. But again, there is zero logic in Shawn's approach to go from a world of processed refined foods and bypassing fruits and vegetables into a diet of only eating meat.
It's very bizarre. It's very bizarre that this isn't challenged. And that shows you how captured our food industry really is. The fact that that's not challenged, the fact that our health guidelines aren't set on, hey, what you should be eating is what human beings are designed to eat in nature.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
which is real food.
I mean, my opinion on dietary guidelines, because we have a USDA that meets every 5 years. And by the way, so the USDA dietary guidelines panel, did you see there's a physician from Harvard named Fatima Stamford, right? And she went on 60 Minutes and said, obesity has nothing to do with diet. It has nothing to do with exercise. It's all disease and genetic, and there's nothing you can literally do. And she's also sponsored by Novo Nordisk, who makes Ozempic, right? And she's on there. And she's also a member of the U.S. Dietary Guidelines panel. So 95% of the people that sit on the U.S. Dietary Guidelines panel today, for this next one where they're going to come up for the 2025 guidelines, all have financial ties to processed food companies.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you think about it, it's just like, this is crazy. So
wild.
So if you go to like Brazil's dietary guidelines, or at least the one they released a few years ago, it was like, here's what you should do. Cook at home, don't eat processed foods, and eat with people around that you love. And that is their recommendation, which I think is better than our guidelines, because, I mean, if left to our own, we are now being told we got to eat all this garbage, and it's just making us sick. It's crazy.
So I think that most people would agree that cooking whole foods at home and avoiding processed refined foods would be a much better option for people's health. But the problem that I have with this complete interview is that the focus has been on processed refined foods being removed from people's diets, which is good. But beyond that, all we have heard is let's put diabetic people on the carnivore diet instead of looking at why they were diabetic in the first place. And oh yeah, we talk crazy people doing enemas and stuff. And from that, we are being told by Shawn that the solution to all of these problems is to remove whole fruits and vegetables from people's diets without any explanations, and simply getting people to eat nothing more than steak and salt. It certainly sounds sensible, right? Anyhow, that's the end of today's video, and if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out this one up here, because I'm sure you'll find it equally interesting. And the only other thing that's left for me to say is to remember to look after your body, because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.